Alright, so I'm going to try to make some more jump rings and remember to wear your safety glasses. Alright?
Twist it and it kind of work hardens it, but it straightens it out. Then I'm going to anneal it again. I don't like the lumpiness of it right now. So I've clamped it in the vise, got a loop on this end, and I'm going to gently, got my safety glasses on again, gently twist it and kind of pull at the same time. And I kind of like the way the texture of this looks. And just, it sort of has this twisted look to it. And at that point, so that's a bit straighter. All right, so I don't necessarily have to put it in a vise. Sometimes you just do it by hand too. And some people will put this in a drill and all that. I'm using this just to hold it in place. So I could cut this, or I could use a snips. Your little saw can work nicely. Sorry, I'm like way off. Your little saw can work nicely because it'll make a smaller cut. A snips will leave kind of a wedge-shaped thing and need a lot more filing. But anyway.
So the saw can work pretty well. So to be a little patient. And then the other thing that works really well is a little die cutter, a little disc cutter on like a Dremel tool or a flex shaft machine. That'll work very quickly. All right.
So we got a few little rings, and what I'm going to do is go at them with a file to kind of clean up that connection point. So if you got a burr around this edge, a little sharp burr, I can use a little file to clean it up a little bit. All right, so this is, once you've kind of filed as much of your rings as you can take them, the ends together to each other, and push them together, and then you got two rings stuck together. Now you can pull them apart too if you wanted to. You know, you can't just come at them dead on. You kind of have to take them at an angle like that. See how that's sort of sliding together there? All right. Now you can bend it with your fingers, or you can use a pair of pliers. Kind of hold them like this and twist them together so they line up. Sorry, that way. So another kind of thing you can utilize is a block of wood with a slot out of it. I can kind of use that, and then the pliers on the other side too, if you don't have. So I can do this, and I can bring these together so they're lined up like that. I want to try 2 blocks of wood. So I set this block of wood in here like that, and I take this block of wood, same kind of groove in it, turn it, because it's softer on the metal.
As you go along, you also want to bring the two cut edges together so that the pieces don't come apart. So eventually you start getting your chain together. All right, and then we're going to try to solder those connections as well. All right, so this is an acetylene B tank. This B is the size of tank. It has a valve on top that you open up, and then it has a regulator attached to that that then adjusts the pressure of the gas going into the hose going to the torch. All right, so we'll look at that. All right, so here we are, and first I want to show you this other type of regulator you may come across. Has one adjusting knob there and one gauge that tells you empty to full. It doesn't have a secondary gauge that tells you how much pressure you're putting in the thing, but you just have to adjust the knob and kind of see what it looks like, how the flame changes. And then the torch is a little bit different than the one I'm going to show you, but it has an opening there, and when you shut it off, there's a little bit of a backflash that comes out of there, so you might want to keep your hands away from that area. All right? All right, so the tank should be secured and chained in place, and this regulator has 2 gauges on it. One will tell you the amount that's in the tank, and the other will tell you the pressure that you're putting in a line when you turn the adjusting screw clockwise. All right, so the setup we're going to use has a slightly different torch. Again, it has one valve on it. Usually only open about a quarter of a turn when you're lighting it. And then on the cylinder tank itself, there is a handle on the top that opens that valve. It's removable. You only open that about a quarter of a turn to the left open, and that's so you can shut it very quickly. On the rest of the regulator that's attached to the cylinder, there you go, are two gauges. One will tells you how much is in the tank, and the other will tell you the pressure that you're putting into the hose to the torch. By turning the regulator screw clockwise, it tightens on a diaphragm, which then allows you to get pressure into the line. If you open it without adjusting that, you won't have any pressure.
All right, so we have the pressures set around 7, and you would never want to crank it up toward the red zone above 15. It's unstable at that point. I'm going to open the valve, a pinch. Oh, you can also utilize gloves. Anyway, so I'm going to open this up a pinch, quarter of a turn, and I'm going to get it to strike, and you see that little tiny flame there, and it's pulling air into these orifices here. So I cover these. See how you can kind of change that? You don't want to do that. That's pulling the air into there to get you a nice flame. Anyway, I'm going to shut it and prepare the other stuff. So if you just shut it, you shut it off like that, there. I'll show you shutdown. It's always good to learn how to land the plane. And then on here, we would shut this. And again, don't crank on it just tightly. And then I would bleed the lines till the needles fell. Kind of bleed out the lines, and then I'll loosen up the pressure on the regulator. All right.
So the adjusting screw on the regulator, you turn about 3-4 times counterclockwise, and then make sure that you have closed, and then make sure that you've closed all the other two valves, the one on the torch and the one on the top of the cylinder. All right.
So, I've cut a little piece of silver solder off of this sheet here. Okay, it's a little tiny piece. And then I mixed up some little borax flux in a little container. And there's also other types of flux. There's ultra flux, there's dandy flux, there's handy flux, lots of fluxes. But you need to coat, and you've got your metal area. We're going to do one of these jump rings. I want to brush the flux, and this is all cleaned up already. All right, put it in there. I also can use sometimes pick it up with this and put it on. Kind of hard to see. I'm going to take a picture of that.
Still hard to see, but there's a little piece of that silver solder that's right on that seam. All right.
So again, lighting the torch, I open up here. You can use gloves if you prefer. I'm going to open it like a quarter of a turn, and then I'll use the striker. Make sure it's sparking. There we go. Open that up a little bit. I get a flame. Get a flame right there. Have my borax on. And I bring in, and I'm not bringing a cone, but the heat right there. And it's going to warm it up and get that silver solder to flow into the joint. And I already did. Now another way to do the silver solder is with wire silver solder. And you can cut that in little pieces too and do the same technique as we did with the sheet. But you can also take a little piece, you can take a piece of it, and then you warm it up, and you're gonna just keep it in there and touch it in place when it's hot enough. Okay. Again, we light the torch. And I'm just gonna get it hot.
All right, and just touch a little bit right there and get just enough silver solder. The problem is you can overdo that really easily, though.
When you clean it up, there should be a silver solder in the spot where the joint was. You can see in these where there's excessive silica and been cleaned up yet. So the neater you are and more careful you are, the better it'll come out. But anyway, basically go back and clean off any excessive silver solder you created. So the less you use, the better. The less cleaning up you'll have to do.